All right, welcome to the Eric Tries Too Hard podcast, episode 125. I am here with new, up-and-coming, whatever the words you want to use for it, comedian here in Baltimore, Mr. Taylor Peppers. How's it going, Taylor?
Oh, very good, very good. And don't be shy to call me a rookie or an amateur or whatever. There's a lot of terms being thrown around, but up-and-coming, I actually think might be the best one. I think that might be my favorite. It sounds like a promising
the term to use.
Yeah.
Well, this is a rare honor for me because you were, I think, the first comedian I've ever had who's been doing it less than me.
Oh, yeah, you've got seniority.
Awesome.
For the first time.
Barely. Yeah, barely. But I'm pretty sure in your short amount of time that you've been doing it, you've probably acquired just as much stage time as me because you have been out there hustling like crazy. So before we get into that, actually, let's get right into that right now. So you're Baltimore-based. You're in the Baltimore, D.C. area. How long have you been doing stand-up, and how often do you get on stage?
I've just started a little bit over 2 months ago now, and ever since I started, I haven't done less than 2 shows in a week. So I've done as many as 4 shows in a week. But I've done at least 2 every week, and just open mics, almost entirely just open mics and stuff. But yeah, I guess Baltimore area, really, I've just been going to Zissimo's and just recently Sidebar for Baltimore. But I'm still learning where all the rooms are and what are the best rooms and stuff. But I've been out in Frederick and Timonium and a couple of different areas trying to find what's best.
No, it's really cool. I found that because I can only go out once or twice a week, I found that it's like figure out where you want to go, but also I like going to as many different rooms as possible. I think that's really important.
Yeah,
or jumping around. Yeah, no, go for it.
Oh yeah, I would love to. I mean, I hear people talk about the nature of this kind of room or that kind of room, or DC crowds or Baltimore crowds. I'm about to have my first DC show later this week.
Oh, nice.
But I'm not that that's like a benchmark, but I don't know. I haven't seen the crowds in DC, so I guess I do agree with you. I mean, I've kind of already fallen into a pattern of what places I go to on what days of the week, but I do want to try new rooms, and I want to meet more hosts. Good networking, try out different demographics. People are already talking to me about like, oh, if you don't get like political humor or whatever, then DC, I don't know what they say about that. I don't know if they think political humor is better there, but the people certainly are, I guess, more business professionals and stuff like that, so definitely different crowd. And certain people, I still haven't done, I don't know. Some people tell me that you haven't really put yourself on the line and taken the risk of bombing until you performed in front of a mostly Black audience, which that has not happened for me yet. Mm-hmm. So actually, the quote I heard just a couple days ago was, "White audiences make you a better writer, but Black audiences make you a better performer." So I guess, yeah. Well, I think the idea is just that they'll shut you down if they don't like you. Is that they'll just make you. Actually, I listened to Louis C.K. talking about exactly that. It's like it wasn't even like when he had like just started or anything. Like he was not like new, and he was like, yeah, I went up in front of this crowd and, they didn't like it from the get-go. And I thought my reaction was, basically, fuck you, I'm going to do my time. And they were like, oh, no, you're not. And he was like booed off the stage in like a minute and a half, So basically, if you lose, I guess that's just the real test of whether you can like kind of control the crowd. I guess that's the difference.
Yeah. No, there's an honesty versus politeness thing that I've heard Big J. Okerson talk about because he was a white guy who started out in all Black rooms in Philly. Right. And he was just like, yeah. And I've heard all sorts of comedians talk about that difference and where it ends up being like, and I've heard it also works in the same with white blue collar rooms as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're because they will just be like, no, you're not funny.
I don't know what I would do in front of like a group of like I can't imagine going to the South and performing. I don't know if my sense of humor would be theirs,
See, I that's one thing that I see. My fear is the inverse. Even though I'm a complete like hipster at heart, I would worry more about performing in front of hipsters because I feel like I'd always have to keep my guard up for like, don't say the no words.
Yeah, all the PC stuff.
Well, that's the other funny thing with that is I always say the right words, but I'm like the context of what I'm saying. Yeah. I feel like even though they shouldn't, I don't know. I always worry when like you hear about college crowds who chasm, and you're like, if you don't get sarcasm and irony, then I can't help you. Like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
But with
for people to come to something like comedy, to come to something like comedy and then try to like examine it that way in the first place is already stupid. I mean, just the fact that you're doing stand up, it's basically all satire, you know. I mean, to take it seriously in the first place. I mean, even if it doesn't sound sarcastic, you know, the way you deliver it or something, like, it's just stupid to try and pick that stuff apart, honestly. And it's
absolutely. Yeah. As I always find, when you talk about stuff about like when I talk about a blue collar crowd, or you're talking about performing in the South, the one thing that every once in a while, very rarely, I've had crowds that are like, I mean, you know, I'm doing the open mics that you're doing too. It's just that like every once in a while there will be a crowd there at certain mics, and I've definitely had ones where the crowd is older, maybe not blue collar necessarily, but definitely older and potentially more conservative. And the thing that like I've relied on in those situations is, and again, I keep kind of saying I'm so new. These are the small sample sizes, but it's like relying on the fact that I have a wife and a kid, and I have adult responsibilities that they relate to. Is like it's a whole other. It's like a whole other skill. It's like, yeah, sure, I don't know every fucking like hipster like reference. I'm kind of falling out of date with all that.
Oh, I'm terrible with pop culture. I don't know. I'm so not in tune. I don't watch TV. I don't watch movies. You know, I'm so out of it.
Yeah, that's because you're at comedy every night. Well, let me ask you this: you because I definitely want to get into how all this started with you. But you're 24, right?
That's right.
Okay. So you. Not only have you been going out to perform, but you've been doing the really smart move as far as meeting new people, of going out to shows you're not even performing at, which is a true way of supporting a local scene, which is very impressive. What gave you the idea? Well, you're also clearly, I don't want to say whatever. You're smart about networking and marketing, and I don't want to make that come across as ingenuine. I'm just saying you're making the right.
I can see your face right now, Eric. I'm sure I can tell you're genuine.
It's just an audio medium.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, also like with that, it's I should clarify also, yeah, me being genuine, but also I'm saying I don't want to come across like you're ingenuine. It's but because you genuinely clearly love the comedy and you want to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like I think I relate to you in that we kind of got in this because we love comedy and wanted to hang out with other comics. So the networking is still genuine because it's like, oh, I want to be here talking to you. That's what I care about, not the connections. Like,
yeah, I think that's part of it. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure if that was quite what it was for me. I mean, I did notice. See, when I first started, I mean, first of all, I was watching comedy for like, I don't know, like 10 years. When I was a kid, you know, way back in the day, Comedy Central, Friday night stand-up.
Yep,
yeah, I don't know what it was really anymore, but it was like 3 straight hours of stand-up, you know, half-hour specials from this, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. I must have seen the same specials a million times, but I watched it religiously, you know. But it wasn't until probably about 2 years ago or so that I started attending like all these local shows. And it really started because a friend of mine started doing comedy himself. So, you know, I was taking him to shows and we were watching stuff together. And I don't know, I've been on the sidelines for a long time. I did notice, as far as like whether I was doing, you know, because I wanted to kind of meet and hang out with the comedians, I guess I got to say I kind of did, because you could tell. I mean, I went to a lot of comedy shows with my buddy and he would be performing and I'd just be an audience member, you know, and I would see him, you know, doing that networking thing and having that hangout, there is this crucial element to every set that you do, every mic that you go out to, every show, where you get like the talk, you get the comic after talk, you know, after show, shooting the shit kind of deal. Yeah. And all anybody wants to talk about is comedy, which is awesome because it's all I ever want to talk about now. You know, it's great.
Well, that's why I like when you're picking specific rooms to like to do these mics at, factoring in, oh, okay, what's the room that's going to allow me to get there, hang out with people, do a set, watch other people, but also have enough time at the end to hang out with people without like disrupting or whatever the show. Like, I mean, it's well, so okay. So let me back. So since you're so new at comedy and you've been doing it a bunch, could you, this is such a specific thing that I feel like I can only ask people who are really new at comedy. Right. Can I assume that you've learned just the last 2 months, learned way more than you ever thought you would about doing stand-up and writing stand-up?
I don't know. I hopefully this doesn't sound like conceited, but I don't know if anything I've learned has really surprised me. I don't know if my mind's like been blown by what I've learned, but I can definitely tell that I've learned and grown pretty quickly. I mean, I guess really, it's hard to say. You know, I can't say like put a bow tie on it and be like, oh, this is what I've learned. You know.
Okay.
But every joke that's new and you do it for the first time, you do learn something. You learn that, okay, maybe this was too personal, and then you do it again later that week, and it's like, oh, well, it's not too personal as long as they've kind of gotten to know you a little bit before then.
Yep.
You know, something like that. And it's just every time you're kind of learning something, but it's none of it is concise factoids or knowledge or even really approaches. I mean, I'm listening to podcasts and watching videos. I've watched a couple videos on comedians being like, this is my process, this is how I write, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, I'm learning stuff on stage and off stage. You know, that's part of the hangout. That's part of the hangout that's so coveted after the mic is that I've learned a lot. I've probably learned much more talking to the comics around me than I have from my actual experiences on stage so far.
No, I definitely went, as far as performance-wise, I definitely just little sentences of advice that various comics that I know have given me, like, changed everything.
Right.
Like, oh, I get it now. Like, you just have to, it's just little things. Well, with your material, I mean, you're 24, you're pretty young. What are you drawing from mostly? And this isn't for me because I've seen you a bunch of times, but like, what are some of the things as a new comedian? Because there's so many directions you can go.
Right.
Figure out who you are, what you have to say. What are you drawing on right now? And don't say everything.
No, it's not. No, it's certainly not everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, the strength I found. Well, first of all, I don't know anything about most things, so I'm certainly not drawing on everything. But this, first of all, this is not my first time writing. It's my first time trying to write comedy, but I've been writing for much longer than that. And I used to write and perform like poetry a lot. So I guess part of the way that connects to me as far as where I'm drawing from for my material, one of my big rules about poetry, because honestly, I get it. That's probably a turnoff the moment I say it. It's a turnoff for anyone when I say it, when you drop the big P.
But you toss your scarf back and your
and I put on my like Harry Potter round thin black lensed glasses, you know, and whatever, I don't know. It's a vanilla chai latte appears in my hand. You know, it's a turnoff. It's a turnoff, and you know what? I totally get it because I'm turned off by most of modern poetry as well. You know, good thing I'm good at it and everybody else sucks. You know, in my opinion.
No, that's fortunate.
But the reason I think I'm good at it and everybody else sucks is because with my poetry, I always kind of had a rule where I wanted to reveal myself, but I promised that I would never like write about myself. I would never have that diary kind of poetry that's like, oh my God, Fluffy, you were such a good dog. Fluffy, why are you dead? Fluffy, you know, I'm not trying to improv a poem right now, but like people will write when they're revealing themselves like that. And it's not just comedy, it's not just poetry, it's any art form. To me, the most amateur artists are the ones that view it like it's their diary. Like they just should vent about, and that can be healthy. That can be healthy, you know, if it's just for you. You can do an art and it can be like kind of a meditation thing and it's just for you. But I think when you go on stage and then perform it, that's when it's like, well, why do I need to listen to you angrily read this poem about your ex-boyfriend? And yes, I'm sure there'll be parts that we relate to, but you should frame it as a completely objective, more relatable thing. Rather than framing it as here's my experience, hope you can relate to it, you know?
That makes perfect sense. That's definitely also as a good jumping off point where you are just like, that's kind of what I like in myself, and some others have told me that's their process. I love it as this is just what happened to me. You don't have to go on stage and say it, but in your head, you're just like, okay, here's what happened. Right. And then you start to figure out, okay, what's the deeper level meaning of this? What is this really about? Not just the events that happened. What is it really about?
Right.
And then where is the humor and relatability in that? Relatability is a big part. That's what a lot of more successful comics, and I write for a site called The Hard Times, and the guy who founded it he accredits a big part to their huge success is act and relate to the jokes. They don't put jokes up there if they were just clever or smart. It also has to be a human element that everyone relates to.
Yeah, but isn't there this kind of like, I don't know, like kind of double think kind of paradox where we think about, you know, obviously to be funny, it has to be relatable, but also the funniest stuff is when you say the most wackadoo shit that's just really surprising and is inherently not relatable. Like, I don't know, like if I wanted to search for something about me that's funny, I wouldn't just look for something that's relatable, like, oh, I work out every day. No, I don't, by the way. I do not work out ever.
You know what? By the way, that's not even relatable. You not working out every day is relatable.
Okay, I don't know. I was just trying to think of something mundane. Like, I don't know. I drive cars. Everybody friggin' drives cars, right? I don't know. But that would be really relatable, and it certainly could be funny. But wouldn't it be way, at least from the starting point, way more funny if I went to absolutely to the thing that's the weirdest thing that I do? You know, like I am. Almost everybody drives cars, but wouldn't you like to hear about how I recycle my shit for fertilizer or something? Like, I don't know, like the most wackadoo shit that you could be doing. And that's just more rich territory because like it's interesting. So I don't know. I agree with you about relatability is important, but isn't there kind of this other thing where like the shocking, like just unrelatable is actually like really funny too?
Yeah, you actually make a really good point about, this is something that I used to think about when writing song lyrics, because I always felt like the songs that I really, really loved fell on one side or the other of the spectrum. One side was, I relate to this so much. But when you look at the lyrics just in a vacuum, without music, without whatever, it's like, oh, that's kind of bland and vague. Like, it's also very relatable.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, the other lyrics I found most interesting were the ones that I couldn't relate to at all because they were so interesting. So I think you that like duality of like, it's almost like you need it to be so interesting that they don't have to relate to it, or it has to be so relatable that it doesn't have to be interesting. Now, here's where I think
I'm gonna ask you, what does that mean? It's so interesting. Like, is that just like kind of like particularly evocative word choice? Like, I've seen certain lyrics or poems or something like that. Just in general, you can kind of tell when a writer is like trying to like name drop and pull up these big like thematic ideas with just saying like simple things. Like, I don't know, people who are just using buzzwords, you know?
I guess when
Oh, I'm sorry, you go.
I was just saying, when I say interesting, I'm referring to like a life experience that's very, okay, so take one of my favorite, probably my favorite hip hop record ever is Kanye West's Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I don't know if you're familiar with that record.
Not terribly. At all. Not at all.
It's him basically being like, I'm gonna tell you what my life is like with my no filter whatsoever.
Right. Okay.
Being brutally honest with myself about it. And I don't relate to being a millionaire playboy who gets into fistfights with his girlfriends. Like, I don't, or whatever he ended up talking about.
But it was interesting. But like, it was captivating.
Yes, it was so fascinating, and that's why, like, well, speaking of Kanye, if you see Aziz Ansari's first special, Intimate Moments for a Sensual Evening, he does a lot of bits where even stories about hanging out with Kanye, and those are some of the bits that are like the most interesting. You hang on them. Like Patton Oswalt was great about like having some older like Patton Oswalt stuff. The bits themselves are more interesting than they are funny. They're still very funny, but it's like I'm hanging on every word, not because I'm excited for the joke, but because I'm so fascinated by what this person's talking about. And here's where it intersects. This is the last.
Go ahead.
The last monologue. But here's where the two, interesting and relatable, I think, in that you start. It's kind of like an inverse of what you were just saying, where instead of starting with I drive, starting with I recycle my poop. Those would be like if you do the inverse and you start with the relatable thing, like I drive every day.
Oh yeah. You don't open.
But then.
You don't.
But then you find no. I'm not even talking about set order. I mean, like when you're creating a joke, the first thing you start with is it's like I drive, whatever, and then you find the most interesting thing within that relatable thing, and we would just call that a take, and that's just getting your own unique an interesting take on something that is relatable to people. And when that all intersects, they can be funny on their own, but when it all intersects, that's when I think you get the real mix between high quality humor that only comedians would really enjoy because it's so high or whatever, or huge comedy fans, and then the relatability that allows people who comedy shows a year, if that, or maybe they'll watch a couple specials a year. That's the kind of joke that allows them, it like lets them have their way in. They're on level 1 of comedy or whatever, and that's their way into getting the better joke.
I think I might already be coming up against a frustration that'll probably be a long time frustration in comedy, which is that I want to do these comedy inside jokes. I want to like make jokes about comedians all the time, but I have to know that the audience is hopefully not comedians. I mean, everywhere I go, the audience is comedians. But anyways, but before we move on, just because I think I get it now, what you're saying about interesting rather than relatable, I guess. I think I got you now. And in comedy, I would call the best example of that, I guess I would say, is Christopher Titus. Do you know Christopher Titus?
Yeah.
So
I'm not familiar with his stand-up, but I know who he is. Yeah.
Right. So he's the least funny comedian that I like. And it's because he talks, it sounds like it must be like Kanye's album that you were describing, because his sets, at least all the specials I've ever seen, are like deeply confessional, and it's all about his absolutely fucked up childhood, his fucked up family, his mom that like murdered her most recent husband, like it's just really dark stuff. Like it's dark all the time, and his crippling alcoholism, all that, it's dark all the time, you know, and but it's riveting. It's riveting. And I don't know. I guess it's just so interesting. It doesn't have to be relatable, you know, because I mean, I've had some problems with my family, of course. I mean, I grew up in middle class America. I think we know the predictable results of those kinds of families. You know, I grew up, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I grew up with an Xbox, but not with a father. So, you know.
Oh, by the way, have you...
Sort of.
That's a really good joke. I didn't have it that bad. I grew up with an Xbox. That's actually a very good, you know, what I really like about that is, goddamn, I don't know if you just said that off the top of your head. Or
I was thinking about it before. I've never done it before, but I had that thought before.
That's a great line, because there is a whole like avenue of like, oh, okay, well, you had money for basic necessities and some fun shit, but there's a lot of emotional distance in certain families. And the line, we didn't have it that bad. I grew up with an Xbox, but not a father. You can even say, if it was in the picture, you could just say like without, or I don't know, whatever. Like he was around, but, you know, not emotional.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah. That's actually really. Hey, guess what? That was a very interesting take on something a lot of people can relate to.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I guess, you know, that's one of the things. I guess the reason I like that take is because it's like kind of that admitting that you're privileged, you know, you have the Xbox, but like, I don't know, I don't like that. I don't like this whole new culture of, you know, what are you allowed to say? You know, are you even allowed to complain about your life? I mean, apparently, some people tell me that as a straight white man, there are no complaints. There's like, your life was perfect, you know? Yeah. But I grew up with an Xbox, you know, so I guess it's, you know, there's some truth to it, but you know, everybody has problems. Everybody has struggles. They're just not necessarily the same struggles.
Yeah, well, and that's yes, exactly. And that's one of the things I think is really interesting where, also, it's funny because you asked, like, oh, what is interesting to you? Interesting is also a crutch word that I use. Not a crutch word. That's my all-encompassing word for, like, I used to say it's funny, but then I was like, well, now people expect it to be funny, and it's most certainly not.
Right.
So the best I can do is call it interesting and hope they find it interesting. But, like, with that, there's so much. I think that's as loud as the voice is that says, you know, the whole you're a straight white male, you've never had any problems or adversity. I feel like that voice is loud, but it's not that prevalent. We are just in the generation and internet culture that sees it a lot.
I still think the majority of people are going to be reasonable and just look at anyone and just be like, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, like we all go through problems, and it's obvious. Like we go to the friggin' DMV and we see the same look on every race's face as they sit in that line. You know, that's really the unification. Yes, yes, the DMV is the great racial equalizer where everybody comes to be discriminated against equally.
By angry office workers.
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly.
Office, whatever.
Government workers.
And I think that's where that's what I think I meant to say. That's where it comes the difference between I think people who more strongly associate with a group or as an individual.
Right.
That's where all the problems end up being like, and it's, by the way, it's so funny that like with the whole horseshoe effect of like you get conservative enough or liberal enough and you wind up at the same place, where it's like
that's a funny way to put it. Go ahead.
Well, okay, that's
like go ahead.
Thing. Yeah. Well, it's like so growing up, the people I was always like, you know, in punk rock, the people I was always like, you know, vilifying were, and I grew up in kind of like a rural area, were like the redneck hick kind of racist people who were like overtly racist, which you don't find that too much in these areas, but like it definitely was like where I went to school.
Sure.
And or it was just a lot of like really rich people who were very, very entitled. And so but they didn't see their own privilege thing. So I was firmly in that camp. But what I always noticed as I started meeting people, like because I had to for work or in the music scene or whatever it was, who didn't have the same beliefs as me, I started noticing that like okay, here's a perfect example. I had a coworker who was like straight up, let me tell you my alternative theories of evolution racist. Like that kind of like
okay, all right. Now out of curiosity, I've got to know, how did that relate to racism? Like, was he like saying like a certain race didn't evolve as well as another race? Okay.
Yes. So white people left the Fertile Crescent earlier and expanded and evolved more than everyone else. That's his theory on, you know, how the world came to be.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If anything, if we were going to look at physical bodies, I'd say black bodies are far more capable than ours. If it wasn't for guns, black people could totally win the war, man. They got those twitch muscle fibers, dude. Come on, they could totally take me down.
You shouldn't ever like try to like hold merit to like it's like,
right.
It's like you're trying to break it down to make sense. And it's like
you're right. That's the wrong choice. I should just you're right. Just wave the whole thing by.
No, not you. I'm just it's like it's so ridiculous. So anyway, this guy I realized one day has more black friends than me, and I was like,
guy. Oh, that's funny.
Happened, and then I started like this is a common thing in racism, which I had actually learned this at like I'm a psych graduate.
I actually
whatever
learned this in my early days with the KKK.
Yeah, you know, it's a pajama party.
The thing about racism is,
but what we found was with like when you study racism, you often find that the mental processes, it goes, this group is bad. But when they meet an individual, they're forced to meet in some way an individual of that group. If they spend enough time with them, they realize that there aren't that many differences and that there aren't that many, and even if there are, that there aren't any negative whatevers.
Right.
And so what that person does, if their core belief involves racism, what they do is they then just modify it a little bit to go, oh, well, that guy's cool. That's where you get those phrases, one of the good ones,
right.
Like racist, like say I have a black friend because they met one and decided, yeah, whatever.
Right.
So, but then nowadays I'll see all these younger people on the liberal side of the spectrum who believe the same things I believe. But I think they're like selfish assholes about it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's almost like they claim that they're doing it to like have social justice or decrease inequality. But really it's like a lot of it's self-involved.
Oh, very.
It's like, I just want me to have it better. I don't give a fuck about it. And those are the people who tend to, just like the other races, they attach themselves to a group and they do the same things where they will go, oh, you're good, but every other white straight male is a piece of shit.
Oh my God. I wish I had gotten at least that. I have never gotten into an argument with one of these people and had them say, well, you're a good guy. They always end up concluding that I'm the most racist, sexist piece of shit there's ever been. because I won't take their shit. Because I will not take their shit. And you know what? I'm willing to talk about issues of you know, the possibilities of privilege and do certain people need help and all that, but you know, it's got to be realistic. And the last thing I'm going to do while I'm simultaneously trying to openly have this conversation, also be told that I'm like a closed-minded racist sexist person.
Yeah.
It's like if I really hated you so much, why would I even be giving you the time of day and talking to you right now? Why would I really even, you know, it's like if you're going to say that to me, then you're just shutting me down. And you're doing exactly the thing that you're accusing me of doing to you, you know, like.
Which is why there's a lot of these cases, like I start to get, like, I'll listen to somebody until they're no longer trying for social justice, they're trying for social vengeance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, this is a thought I had the other day, because I actually think about social justice a lot. I don't know. I watch like YouTube videos. Like I said I don't watch TV. That's true. I don't watch movies. That's true. But I do spend a lot of time watching YouTube, you know, vloggers. That's honestly where I keep up with the news. I'm into certain people that, because I think it's not unbiased. I wouldn't say it's unbiased, but people are not scared to show you the truth on YouTube, because they're not part of a network. They're not part of anything like that. You know, they don't need to put a spin on it. I mean, they may choose to individually put a spin on it, but they're not like obligated to. So anyways, I use it for news and stuff like that. And so I'm following these news all the time, all these protests that are going on at various colleges by Black Lives Matters, but not necessarily just Black Lives Matters, just various student groups that are just protesting about any number of things, LGBTQ rights, anything involving Islam, or the new transgender bathroom hot button issues, or it might be a Black Lives Matter thing, or just about Black people if it's not actually part of Black Lives Matter, whatever. Tons of these protests going on all the time. And I think about social justice all the time. And I had a thought recently about the name of just the term social justice. And I think it's such a perfect word. I think it's such a perfect name for it, because it shows you both the beginning and the end of this movement. Because at the beginning, social justice meant justice for all of society, a just society. But now what social justice has become is mob justice, social justice, society enforcing justice upon all these people. I mean, the SJWs are the ones who are making people lose their jobs or resign over all these different things. It's not the government. Like, okay, let me put it this way. I have never in my life feared that the government was going to take my free speech from me. Not in my lifetime, anyways. Certain people in certain places can certainly have that fear, but I have never felt like the U.S. government is trying to repress my freedom of speech, freedom of religion, any of those basic, core freedoms in any way. The only people who are trying to suppress my freedom of speech is the rest of society. And it's very trendy to do so now. It's very trendy to do so, as long as you can convince people that you are on the moral side, and that's what social justice is.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I was just thinking that this, like today, even maybe just yesterday, I was reading. I always read all these like social justice blogs or all sorts of anything that's like extremist political stuff on every side of the spectrum. It's like that's my version of like watching Real Housewives.
Right.
Watching all sorts of like crazy. It really is, because I'm learning a little bit, but it's mostly just people who are so angry about everything else. And watching that, I started to realize, oh no, you know what it was? It was an article today that I read from, I think it was on some feminist blog. And
I love reading feminist articles, and then I don't know, and then just rage smoking a cigarette afterwards.
I did. Well, I read a reasonably sensible one, but it was like, it was funny. I used to do this. I did this bit 2 or 3 times, and it bombed every time, and it was way too much of a production, so I stopped doing it.
Is it about feminism?
Yeah, it's about how I like to go to feminist blogs, so I can, because it's like emotional BDSM for me. And then I bend over the stool. I pretend like I'm clicking on a site, and then I start pretending like I'm getting fucked in the ass, right. And then I just start going like, oh, smash my patriarchy, oh, smash just sex stuff with SJWs.
I like half of that. You should just definitely continue to kill to Don't kill all your feminism material. I want to see the maximum amount of feminism. I saw Sammy Kelly the other week, and she was knocking on feminism, and I was like, thank God, because we can't tell those jokes, right? I mean, we barely can. You have to be very careful.
You should have seen how I just cut that shit up. I even had to do like an anti like racism joke that wasn't even that funny. Right. Into something,
but you felt like you did something. Yeah, and that's very true. That's very true because this all goes back to the PC culture, SJW stuff, because now we have like this kind of I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before. We have this kind of like a oppression Olympics hierarchy where, you and me, we're on the straight white male. So, we can't complain about anything. We can't talk about anything, because if you do, you're being insensitive, right? But that doesn't mean we're comedians, so we have certain things we want to talk about. So you have to like prep it just right? You have to have the right lead in to make it okay for you to say something. So I think a great example of this is this one joke that, obviously I'm pretty new, but this joke has pretty much landed almost every time, at least a little bit landed. It's never been like silent. It's never been booze, well, almost nothing's been booze so far. Except for this pun I landed that was great, and everybody just started booing, and I was like, pour it on me. Pour it on me.
I'll take it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to start doing like twice as many puns in my sets. Because I loved it. They were booing. This was earlier this week, and these guys were just booing like, oh, and I was like, fuck you. I was like, you're only doing that because you loved it.
Yep. It's always that they laugh real quick, and then they get angry because they laughed at it.
Right. Because they don't want to think that that's funny, because you're a nerd if you think that's funny, apparently. But what was I saying? So the social justice PC thing, it all ties back because what was I saying? Oh, right. So prepping a joke. So if you're talking about a certain thing that is like a risky territory, you have to like kind of change the perception of your identity. So the way this one joke worked, I think the only reason it worked, basically I'm making a white pride joke, right? And the only reason I get away with it is because halfway through the joke, I make myself gay in the joke. That's the only. So the joke is that I want to get a tattoo. I'm going to get a tattoo of the word pride across my forehead, right? And I'm going to get a white power fist on my cheek, and then just wait for like a black guy to come up and be like, "That's racist." I'll be like, "Excuse me, I'm gay." That's what the pride's for. That fist is what I want in me, And right.
Why is it got to be a white fist?
Right. And then, but then that's just the first half. And then like he's like, "Oh, well, are you single then?" And I'm like, "Oh, but I don't date black guys." And I've got like a swastika, like a rainbow swastika tattoo on the back, like tramp stamp. So it's like I basically told a white pride joke, and the only reason it works is because I also make myself gay in the joke. I don't think it would work at all otherwise.
You also, with the facial tattoo stuff, I think the other thing that's adding to that is the absurdity.
Yeah.
Like, you do a subtle.
I'm not serious the moment I say that. The moment I say I'm going to get a tattoo right across my forehead, I'm bullshitting. So that helps.
Oh man, I thought I knew where you're going with that, and it was place, but yours was way better. So that's why I laughed. I was like, God damn it. If I had come up with that joke, it would have been terrible. I would have bombed every time. Nice job, Taylor. Well, going back to, you had mentioned something that actually ties in a little bit with that, of prepping those jokes as you're telling them. You were talking about how you couldn't get too personal without having the crowd get to know you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like, from what I mean, that's some good knowledge that you learned. Did you kind of figure that out right? No, you didn't figure that out right away. That was something that you kind of like picked up on.
Yeah.
So how do you manage with it's open mic, so we're talking 4 or 5 minute sets here.
Right.
So like what are some of the strategies you use to either have them get to know you or loosen up a little bit before you launch into anything risky or personal in that short time span? Great
question. And as a completely unqualified person to answer this question, let me give you my incredibly detailed answer.
Beautiful. Good.
Okay, so I would say that I basically learned this lesson. I mean, I had inklings of it, but I think I kind of learned this lesson was rammed home for me just last week because my set last week was, I guess, kind of personally revealing in a way that not all of my jokes are. I'd say the hardest bit to get through was this joke about how hairy I am because I have a shit ton of body hair, and it's a cringeworthy thing. It turns people off just to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But it is true, and I have been told, revealing yourself is part of comedy. so I want to do
So
that.
you literally just took your pants off.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
but they told me revealing yourself is part of being a comedian, but they also keep telling me I can't have my dick out on stage. So,
which is bullshit.
You can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways. You can't have your cock and eat it too. That didn't actually make sense. That didn't actually make sense.
That's a great joke.
I just wanted to say that. Okay, so the joke is that I'm hairy, but so I've performed this joke 3 times now, and the first time, silence, my man, silence. I mean, the whole set was pretty bad. I mean,
not gonna lie.
Well, it was all new material. I mean, to be fair, this is pretty much the way all of my sets go. Is that I start with them. I try to do. It's not exactly every week, but I try to do a new 5 minutes each week. And
I was going to ask about that, because I've always seen you do different stuff, and I think, that's how I do it too until I have to prep for something, and then I'm like, all right,
something bigger. Exactly. So if I have a show that somebody's paying for, I'm not just going to go up there with untested stuff. I mean, at worst, it'll be stuff that I wrote like earlier that week, and I've already took on stage like 2-3 times. Yes, so at worst, it's
the other thing. She's making fun of the comedians who are always like, you have to do your joke so many times before you can like reliably tell it. And she was like, oh yeah, you got to tell your dick joke 200 times to know if it works. Like,
yeah, right.
Real heavy stuff. Yeah. Anyway, kill on. Yeah.
So, where was I? What were we talking about? how to reveal yourself?
You're doing lots of new stuff.
And new material and how I test it.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember why I was talking about how often I write or whatever. Right.
Well,
Because it was bombing. So generally, this is how sets work, anyways. Is because it's new material at the beginning of the week. So generally, it bombs at the beginning of the week, and it's doing pretty okay by the end of the week. If that's like the 3rd time you've done it, right? But I think this one bit is a little bit different because it's kind of revealing, and like I said, it turns people off. The whole bit about how I'm hairy, right? Well, I think it started to work by the end of the week because I would say it was one of my best sets ever. I would say was last week, and it was the same set I'm talking about with the hairy joke in it, and it killed. And this hairy joke killed. Now, first of all, the joke had been tweaked a little bit after the first performance. Second of all, as you perform it more, it gets more tuned. You get more practiced at it. But I think the big thing is where it came in my set, and whether or not I had managed to establish a rapport with the crowd yet. So I think I got very lucky in the set at the end of the week when it actually went well. I got lucky because I won over the crowd really early, mainly because this one drunk lady had made like a big deal about coming up and sitting in front of the mic, in front of the actual comedian right before my set started, right? And she actually got some of her friends to come and sit. So I actually had an audience, right? But the host was sitting there telling me like, oh, well, the pressure's on, because literally the host had just been calling out everybody because it was towards the end of the night. I was one of the last comics. The room was dying down. People were not really paying attention. He was calling everybody out. He was like, look, guys, we're people up here, try not to talk over us. Try to pay attention a little bit. We do have a whole stage over here. Would anybody like to come sit in front of the stage? So like they all come up there. And this one lady is drunk as hell and shouting and oh, fine, okay, I'll come sit, whatever. And she comes and sits, and then and the host literally said, he was like, all right, well, the next comic's gonna have a lot of pressure on him, but here's Taylor Peppers, and I come out, and the first thing I did to try and establish rapport was try and acknowledge what the situation was, and the fact that it was a little bit tense because the room had been dead, and then this lady made a big deal about how, okay, you want us to watch? Fine, now we're watching, like we're like all like spiteful about it, right? So the first thing I said was, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I prefer. Whenever I have an audience in front of me, I always hope that they've been guilt tripped into sitting in front of me. That's the ideal way. And everybody laughed, and it immediately, because I didn't ignore the situation. And now that was kind of an opportunity, because it's not always going to be this kind of dramatic moment right before you go on stage. But that was the point, was that I started out trying to win them over. And I think a good way to do that is to be sort of referential to the moment and where you're coming. I think that's part of the reason why a lot of comics will like kind of make a joke that's based on the set of the comic that went right before them or something like that. Because when you acknowledge what just happened, that's how you keep the tempo from where it came from and change it to your tempo. Like you're creating a transition from whatever just happened, whatever the room was like just then, into what you want the room to be now, you know? So you kind of start from there and you do something kind of acknowledging to the room towards maybe a joke somebody made before you, maybe this guy who's been shouting and talking over everybody, whatever it is. If there's an elephant in the room, call it out. And then people respect you for that.
Yeah, well, it's also, it's you're in the moment with them.
Right.
It can't be you against them. And they were turning it into you against them. And you went up and you were like, hey, I'm acknowledging the same thing you all are.
Right. This is kind of awkward, right?
And so, yeah. And so they're just like, yeah, you're right. It is. That's funny. That's the release of the tension.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you go into your jokes, assuming they're good, then you keep them. That's awesome. It's so funny because like I'm glad we're having this conversation now because as we learn more and more, it'll be interesting. Because I like talking to you a lot just at shows and stuff. I'm excited to I'm going to invite you next time we do some group casts to be on. I feel like you have a lot of stuff to say.
Oh,
it's really beneficial.
I talk too much sometimes. Yeah, honestly.
That's the good thing. The best shows that I've had for the group casts, or even interviews for that matter, is when everyone involved like talks too much.
And they
all, as long as
everyone can't hear anyone because everybody's talking over everyone, right? That's the ideal way.
I was literally about to say before you talked over me. No, I was literally about to say how once everyone gets the rhythms down to know when to stop or when to jump in, like combination of everyone talks who like wants to talk too much but figures out how to slip in all the stuff they want to say. That makes for some of the best podcasting. Even when you listen to the actual professional or whatever you want to call it, comedians who do podcasts, the ones that do really well are not the ones that do really well, but like the difference between when you hear local type of podcasts and those podcasts, in those, everyone wants to get out whatever they can get out, which I think is really impressive because I've had guests on who, and this is fine, but like we'll do a group hang and there are sometimes people who just want to say like 3 or 4 things throughout the entire hour. They'll come in, say their thing, and then that's cool. 3 people like that, and then a host, and the host is trying to like keep it going. It's like it's really helpful to have people who talk
that
way
want to
too
dominate
much.
the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're a good host, you can kind of rein all that in, and that's like, you know. But no, I think that's really important. That's why I definitely want you on that. Well, so give me any of the plugs, anything you got coming up. We're not announcing it yet, but I got something for you.
Okay,
I mean, we talked about that.
So we'll keep that as the vague plug of the night. Eric's got something for me. Come see me on Undetermined at Undetermined in Undetermined with Eric Navarro Tries Too Hard presents.
Still, even that's undetermined.
Right. Oh, his name may not even be the same by then, guys.
You don't even. So far off. So, hey, give us your plugs, where you can find you on social media, and anything you got going up. I'm going to put this up sometime this week, Thursday probably by the latest. So anything you got coming up after that.
Sure. I do not plan ahead too much in my life. I don't do Twitter or anything yet, so none of that. But I do have some shows. I know I should, but I actually don't do. I just can't care. I just cannot care. I don't know why. It could be useful, but anyways, I do have some shows coming up. If this releases on Thursday, then on Thursday night I will be doing nothing. I'm sorry, on Friday night I'll be at the Sound Room in Hanover, PA.
Oh, cool.
That's gonna be my first time in that room. I'll be there with.
Is that a mic or is that a showcase type thing?
It is. I guess it's my first time doing it, but it's not. It's certainly not a mic because I signed up in advance. I was contacted by my buddy Caleb, who's been doing that room for a while now, and I think he's very new as well. He's probably started maybe a month before me, or something like that. And they've already given him his first 15 minutes there, and they've just been. He just kind of started. So they're giving me actually what will be my first 10-minute set. I mean, I did like 10 minutes once, but
oh, that's awesome.
I did 10 minutes once, but I think that was just because there was not many people signed up for that mic, you know. So he just kind of let people just chill up there. But yeah, so I've got a nice extended set this Friday at the Sound Room, and then on Sunday, July 3rd, this is kind of the one I guess I actually want to get out there, is that I'll be doing a show at the Beer Baron in DC. That's my first DC show that I was talking about.
Cool.
And it's I guess it's like kind of like an Independence Day thing. It's $10 to get in there, but I don't know. Other than that, it'll be happy hour though. I think it's at like 6 o'clock or something. So it's in the middle of their happy hour. So yeah, people should come out and get drunk and And then see, that's how you outsmart the cops, because they're all out on 4th of July. So you get wasted on July 3rd. You get wasted, and you can bring it. Nobody's checking for fireworks yet, so you can bring all your fireworks, and we'll get them out early.
Nice. All right. Well, so if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know to find more podcasts on erictriestoohard.com. Eric Tries Too Hard on YouTube. Eric Tries Too Hard iTunes. Eric Tries on Twitter, and Eric Tries Too Hard on Facebook. Well, Taylor, thanks so much for coming on. Am I going to see you tomorrow night at Wits?
At Wits End? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. I should be bringing a friend with me too.
All right,
dude, that is like a 260-pound bearded man. That is not. No, he's not 260 pounds. That was mean, actually. But he's probably like 230. He's probably like 230. But
well, you know what? Tomorrow we'll weigh him. It'll be great.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, I will see you then, and it was great talking to you. I'm going to have you back on if you'll be on, because I definitely want to keep having conversations with you about comedy. All right, man. Well, I will catch you later.
All right. Have a good one.
Later.